When people think of Joel Osteen, they immediately picture the world-renowned televangelist, with a polished smile, uplifting sermons, and a church that reaches millions globally. But what many fail to realize is that behind Joel's success stands a woman who rarely demands the spotlight yet has shaped his journey more than most could ever imagine. His wife, Victoria Osteen. Their story is not just about marriage, but about faith, sacrifice, and the unwavering support that Victoria gave during Joel's most difficult moments. Some even say that Joel would never have become the man he is today if Victoria hadn't been by his side. The roots of Joel and Victoria's story trace back to a simple yet profound meeting in the late 1980s. Victoria, the daughter of a Houston-based jeweler, grew up with a deep sense of family and faith. She was working at her family's jewelry business when Joel walked in one day, not searching for gemstones, but simply having a watch battery replaced. What began as a casual interaction soon blossomed into conversations, shared values, and an unspoken bond. Joel was shy, quiet, and still living in the shadow of his father, John Osteen, who had built Lakewood Church from humble beginnings. Victoria, on the other hand, carried an energy that was bold, confident, and refreshing. She saw in Joel not just a preacher's son, but a man with tremendous potential, who only needed encouragement to find his voice. That first meeting would change both of their lives forever. In 1987, Joel and Victoria tied the knot. For many couples, marriage is about love, but for Joel and Victoria, it was about mission. She didn't just become his wife, she became his partner in every sense of the word. Joel, still unsure of his path, often leaned on Victoria's faith when he doubted his own abilities. Victoria was the one who constantly reminded him, "You don't need to be your father, you need to be yourself." At the time, Joel was working behind the scenes in television production, helping his father's ministry but avoiding the pulpit. He never thought he had the charisma or calling to preach. Yet Victoria believed otherwise. She encouraged him to look beyond fear and trust that God had placed something unique within him. In 1999, tragedy struck when John Osteen, Joel's father, passed away unexpectedly. The church was left without its founding pastor, and Joel was thrust into a situation he had never prepared for. The leadership of Lakewood Church needed someone to step forward, but Joel was hesitant. He had never preached a sermon in his life. This was the moment where Victoria's role became more critical than ever. While Joel wrestled with doubts, Victoria reassured him that he was capable. She reminded him that leadership wasn't about imitating his father, it was about bringing his own gifts to the table. She stood by him during sleepless nights, prayed over him before his first sermons, and gave him the courage to take the pulpit when fear nearly paralyzed him. Without her steady encouragement, Joel might never have stepped into ministry at all. Victoria's belief in Joel wasn't just about words, it was about action. She made sacrifices that allowed him to focus on leading the church. When Joel stumbled over words in his early sermons, she was the one cheering him on. When critics doubted his ability to succeed as father, she reminded him that his calling was bigger than their opinions. Her love was not blind. It was anchored in faith. She saw his struggles, his insecurities, and even his tears, but she refused to let him give up. Many in their inner circle have said that Victoria's confidence was like a fire that lit Joel's path. As Joel grew into his role as senior pastor, Lakewood Church exploded in growth. What once was a small congregation became one of the largest churches in America, but Joel himself has admitted that he couldn't have done it without Victoria. While he prepared sermons and broadcast messages, she helped shape the family atmosphere of the church. She became CO pastor, not by ambition, but by necessity. Her warmth and relatability made her a favorite among women in the congregation, while her practical wisdom balanced Joel's optimistic style. Behind the scenes, Victoria also managed the stress of raising their children, Jonathan and Alexandra, ensuring that their family life remained grounded even as the church expanded into a global phenomenon. Joel Osteen's ministry has not been free of controversy. Over the years, he has been criticized for preaching a prosperity gospel, for avoiding political commentary, and for smiling too much. During Hurricane Harvey in 2017, Lakewood Church faced backlash for not immediately opening its doors as a shelter. In these moments of public criticism, Joel often found himself under intense pressure. But once again, it was Victoria who gave him strength. She reminded him that no matter what people said, their focus should remain on serving God and helping people. Victoria's words became Joel's shield. She told him, "If you let every voice affect you, you'll lose your own. Stay true to what God gave you." This kind of encouragement allowed Joel to keep preaching despite storms of negativity. To the public eye, Joel is the star of Lakewood Church, but those closest to the couple know that Victoria is the anchor. She rarely seeks attention, yet her fingerprints are everywhere. In Joel's confidence, in his messages of hope, and in the family that surrounds him. When Joel wrote his best-selling books, Victoria was his first reader, often providing feedback and helping him polish his thoughts. When he traveled the world to speak, she was there, ensuring that he never felt alone. Their marriage was not a story of one shining and the other fading. It was about two people shining together, even if one stayed slightly in the background. What makes Joel and Victoria's love story powerful is not wealth, fame, or the size of their church. It is the quiet, unseen sacrifices Victoria made so Joel could thrive. From late nights encouraging him to step into his calling, to managing family responsibilities when he was overwhelmed, to speaking life into him when critics tore him down. Victoria saved Joel, not in a dramatic moment, but in countless small ways over decades. Their marriage proves that true love is not just romance, it is partnership, sacrifice, and choosing each other again and again, even in the hardest times. Today, when millions watch Joel Osteen on television or attend Lakewood church in person, they see a man who represents hope and encouragement. But behind that man is a woman who never stopped believing in him. Victoria Osteen saved Joel, not from failure, but from doubt. She saved him from the temptation of giving up when life became overwhelming. She saved him by reminding him of who he truly was when the world told him otherwise. Their story is not just a love story between husband and wife. It is a testimony of what happens when two people unite in faith, love, and destiny. Joel's success is not his alone. It belongs to Victoria too. Many people look at Joel Osteen today and assume that his life has always been smooth, that his success was inevitable, and that his smile reflects a life without struggle. But the reality is far more complex. And at the center of it all is Victoria Osteen, who acted as the invisible strength holding him together through moments of doubt, weakness, and overwhelming pressure. When Joel first took over Lakewood Church after his father's sudden passing, he was terrified, and he often confessed privately that he wasn't sure if he could ever measure up to the legacy of John Osteen. Yet Victoria reminded him every day that his calling was not to imitate his father, but to step into his own identity, and she reassured him that authenticity was more powerful than imitation, that God had placed a unique message in his heart that the world desperately needed to hear. And so Joel slowly began to preach with confidence, leaning on Victoria's steady encouragement, her calm reminders, and her refusal to let him shrink back into fear. When the church began to grow, Joel often faced sleepless nights, worrying about whether he could handle the weight of such a massive responsibility. But Victoria always told him that God never gives a burden without also giving the strength to carry it. And she carried part of that burden with him by managing their home, raising their children, and ensuring that Joel always returned from the pulpit to a place of love and stability. She has often been described as the quiet hero of Lakewood, because while Joel's face is on television, Victoria's influence is woven into everything he does. From the structure of his messages to the warmth of his delivery, as she constantly reminded him to keep his focus on hope, love, and encouragement instead of negativity or division. When critics accused Joel of preaching too much about prosperity, Victoria told him not to waver, not to give in to pressure, and not to compromise on the message God had given him, for she knew that people didn't need another harsh preacher. They needed someone who would remind them of God's goodness. And Joel's strength to keep smiling in the face of criticism was born out of Victoria's whispered words of confidence behind closed doors. Many don't realize that Joel often struggled with insecurity, even after becoming famous, because he never trained formally as a pastor. Yet Victoria consistently reminded him that what mattered most was not formal training but the anointing of God, and that gave Joel the confidence to step onto the stage of the former Compact Center when Lakewood moved there and begin speaking to tens of thousands, with millions more watching on TV. And while the world applauded Joel for his composure, it was Victoria who stood in the shadows smiling, knowing how much prayer, encouragement, and emotional support it had taken to bring him to that point. She sacrificed her own dreams and comfort for his, not because she felt forced to, but because she believed that God had tied their destinies together, and she was proud to see his success. As their joint victory, over time, Joel began to openly acknowledge her influence, telling people that he would never be where he is today without Victoria's faith in him. And even in interviews, he has admitted that during the darkest nights, when fear tried to overwhelm him, she was the one who saved him from quitting, saved him from letting fear silence his voice, and saved him from losing sight of his calling. What makes their story so powerful is that it is not about dramatic headlines or one single heroic act, but about the steady daily choice of one woman to believe in her husband even when he doubted himself, and because of that, Joel Osteen became one of the most influential pastors in the world, carrying not only his own dreams, but also the unwavering love and sacrifices of the woman who has always stood beside him. In the end, the story of Joel and Victoria Osteen is not just about the rise of a famous pastor, nor is it only about the success of one of the largest churches in America. It is about the quiet, powerful influence of a woman who chose to believe in her husband when he didn't believe in himself. Victoria Osteen's love has never been loud, but it has been steady. Her sacrifices have rarely been noticed, but they have carried Joel through every storm. She has been the anchor that kept him grounded when fame threatened to overwhelm him, and the strength that pushed him forward when fear tempted him to stop. Joel's success cannot be separated from Victoria's unwavering support, because every sermon, every book, and every broadcast carries the imprint of her faith in him. Their journey together is proof that true love is not about standing in the spotlight, but about standing faithfully in the shadows, lifting up the one you love. As Joel continues to inspire millions, the world now knows that his greatest inspiration has always been right beside him. Victoria Osteen, the woman who saved him,